Hi, my name is Steve. I am the site administrator here for the Teacup project. Just giving you an update of everything that had happened in April. I didn't quite meet the roadmap requirements. Had a couple of things come up. One, I did not plan on my capacity for Easter and all of the celebration that happened there on that weekend. Did not get much accomplished. And then also we unfortunately had a death in the family, and so that ate up some time, obviously, for some priorities that hit. But I'm very pleased with how far we got. A couple of things will roll over into May, and we'll keep churning it out. But the idea for April was to be able to add different pages for all kinds of different parts of the parks in Disneyland. So there will be different pages for each attraction, for each restaurant, for each hotel, for each park, for each land inside of the park, and things like that, just so you have all kinds of details that you can use for your planning and getting around and what to expect where. What we're looking at here is the list for the administrators. Right now I have all of the attractions up. The data entry took me much longer than I had anticipated for all of the different attractions. There are a lot of attractions in here. But that should be the bulk of it. There are not as many shops as there are anything else. I will not be doing the shops in Downtown Disney because those change over time, maybe with a couple of staple exceptions like the Earl of Sandwich or the World of Disney, things like that. But most of them will not be included there. Things like the restaurants that are available, the carts that are available, those types of things will be included for each one. All of my images are temporary, so you'll see several that are duplicated, and none of them actually make sense for the entry that they're in. So you'll have all of that. And again, we're looking at the administrator side here. So this is where I can come in, adjust things, change them as I need to, make updates very easily as they come through. I can see when they're last modified. I will be adding the user who actually modified it down here as well. How many videos are available, how many photos are available, what land is it in. Right now I haven't put the lands in yet, so they're listed as unknown, but they'll have the land. The location, this will have a name instead of a number. As far as generally, 1 is Disneyland, 2 is California Adventure, 3 will be Downtown Disney. What type of attraction it is, so there's rides, there's walkthroughs, there's parades, there's shows, other types of things. And those will all be available as well. So let's get into one just to be able to see. Oh, you'll also be able to sort them. I've not yet included the sort, but it's a simple SQL command, so I'll be able to do it so you can sort ascending and descending and by each of the different fields that have an arrow at the top. So you'd be able to do that. So let's get into one and just kind of see what it's all about. Let's hit Big Thunder because it's where my cursor was. So I have my official name of everything. It'll change over, exactly when it needs to, so you can get a preview of what it looks like in the font. The sorting name, so this helps me get rid of the word the and the word a when I'm sorting things, so that it can take the first primary word. And things like "It's a Small World" should start with the letter I, not with the quotation mark. The unique name that everything will have. So you can see you can't see. But it's at Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is the actual URL. It's in Disneyland. It's a ride. It's not a set of decorations. So you also have things like the Halloween theming and the Christmas theming. It's not a game. It's not a parade. It is a ride. So all those different types are there as well. None of this on the table or here on this page is styled through Bootstrap or any other framework. It's all done by hand from scratch, which is the idea of the project. You have the ability to change the image if you want to, or any of these other things. So these are the same field that we had previously seen inside of the actual blog entry, so you have full control over your markdown that gets thrown into it. All kinds of different options are available. Is there additional fee to use Big Thunder Mountain Railroad? Of course not. It's not a carnival game like, say, the Midway games you'd find in Disney California Adventure or the Shooting Gallery. It doesn't close down for shows. Several different rides close for parades, several close for fireworks, generally in the Fantasyland area, some close for World of Color, those types of things. We want to know what they are. It does get very dark inside. I generally reserve this for dark rides or like the cinema where all the lights are down. But here, that first tunnel is so pitch black that it seemed a shame not to include it in the dark section. There are drops. It's obviously fast. There is a fast pass. This is not a fortune teller. It is not indoors. It doesn't have app interaction. This is actually a new Boolean. I just added this in, so I need to go back through and add anything that has any app interactions with it and make sure that I can put in those details. And it's not alphabetically set, so I'll need to put it up at the top. It is a mountain, so your mountain rides are your Splash Mountain, Space Mountain, Matterhorn, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, those types of things. So we want to make sure we have all. It lets you sort by viewing the mountain rides. It probably should be a must-do. I'm going to change that. It was not an opening day attraction. It opened in '79. It doesn't allow a ride photo, but it does allow a ride a switch. None of these are applicable. Generally, you'll want your preschoolers age 4 and below to maybe avoid the ride. It's very sharp turns. It is very fast. It's very sudden drops. So I know that we'll get to the, generally you'll meet the height, but it might be best to have them skip out. You know your child better than I do, but as a general rule, I unchecked that one. But it's fantastic for kids, grade school kids, for tweens, generally in the middle school area, for teenagers. Adults might want to keep Grandma and Grandpa off of this one. Again, you know your grandparents better than I know them. But generally, with all of the very sudden twists and turns and lots of jerky motions are not things that I'll put on the grandparents list. So you'd be able to filter by rides for grandparents if they're coming in as well. The primary YouTube video ID, I have many of these up on my channel on YouTube, and so I will add it. If not, I will add the best one that I can find and make sure that you can actually see it. If I want the page to have a custom background image, be able to do that. How long is the actual ride in seconds? When this is actually displayed, it'll show minutes and seconds, but for the sake of here, it's just seconds. It does have a minimum height of 40. It opens and closes when the park does, so I didn't add a special time. Things like Toontown opens late, has its own rope drop, and closes early. Things like the Mark Twain will close early for Fantasmic and generally not open again because they want you to have the daylight time to be able to ride that. So any rides that open and close at different times, I want to make sure we can include time for that. Have you actually met any characters? So Mickey's house, you meet Mickey. Minnie's house, you meet Mickey. The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, generally you'll meet Winnie the Pooh and Rabbit and Tigger and a few others. So we want to make sure that we're putting in the characters that you'll meet there. The opening day, see, I actually had put this over here so that you could actually choose off of a calendar what day it opened. The problem that I had is that there are 2 different attractions that I couldn't actually find the date. I could only find the month and the year. And so I need to be able to put in just the month of the year, so I changed the way that I did that. So we will say this is September 2 and 1979, and be able to include that as well. It doesn't have a close date. It is obviously still open and running. Any of these that are actually required, you'll see the asterisk there, so I know that it's there. This is next to the right entrance, so it shows me it's required. Very helpful. The other thing that's very helpful for me is if I add anything like, if I closes for shows, it'll actually ask me what show does this close for. And I can put in the list or just one or whatever it is that I want. And if I try to submit this with any fields that are wrong, I can see I have some errors that showed up, and it tells me this field is required. And it does this for a few things. The Fast Pass shows up with the actual Fast Pass that's there, so you'll end up having things like that. Does it have any app interactions? What are they? How does it interact with the app? And so we want to make sure that we're including those things as well. So. But that is generally working with, let's clear out the errors, do it again, and my update was successful. So I made it a must-do and added the better formatting for the day, month, and year. Then those changes went through. Right now I only have attractions. Like I said, I will be adding those other details soon. Nothing else takes as much time as far as data entry. I will not be doing a list of all of the shops and restaurants in downtown Disney. Probably do a couple of staples, like maybe the Earl of Sandwich and the World of Disney and the Starbucks that's there, but generally not going into too much detail, as those are more third-party, not owned by Disney, and they're subject to change. So more be focusing on like the shops and restaurants inside of each of the parks and hotels. and things like that. So, your character breakfast that happens at the Disneyland Hotel, want to make sure that Goofy's Kitchen is marked inside of there. Also have the ability to add a new entry as I go through, so it'll generally just give me the date stamp, and then I can go through and add in anything I want, and go through and change my slug. It generally just puts in a hash. So, and I can go through, and of course this is going to blow up because there's a lot more things that are required that I haven't actually included yet. So anything I want is in Downtown Disney and their decorations. So you'll have that. This is the same component that you used to see in the, let me clear out some of the, you see an awful lot of red as we go through, making it very obvious what needs to happen. Let me clear that out. So this is the same thing that we see in the blog entry, so you can have your heading and your actual work text here and all of those type of things, and be able to adjust it as you need to. So it works with full Markdown editor and get things going. So be able to add in new things as you need to. If I really don't have all of this information, that's no good, obviously, but it's not going to let me submit it. I'm not going to go through on the purpose of this demo and go through and do it. I can do it later, so it's appeared on my list, and I can see it actually brings me right back to where it is that I wanted to go. So I have the ability to see this. These are the admin sides. All of the actual API endpoints exist. They are secured, and they have a full model and controller set up for my database listings. And the front end is all set to run all of the promises back and forth and set up things like the the store for data to be able to move everything back and forth. So all of that is set up. It just needs the data entry. And then I will be using the blog post format for listing everything out, just as the page layout, because it's already set up to work with all kinds of different size screens and shapes, whether it's landscape or portrait, for all the different resolutions that are there. So I'll be using that page component to house all of this information. The other nice thing is all of these templates, nothing in here is actually hard-coded. So I'm actually passing this one area a big helper file to be able to go through and add all of my content, which is really helpful because I don't have to actually write a new one of these, whole page each time I want to add a new database entry as far as like a hotel or a land or anything. I can just write a new helper file, tell it where I want my fields and what fields should be there, and the helper file will actually build it. And the primary component is generic enough to be able to handle that. So really tried to keep this, the ability to reuse everything as much as possible, make it as generic and yet useful to go through everything. So I can just have one container that feeds the specific information, and then the actual component itself does everything on its own. So that's kind of the plan. That is the accomplishments I've got for April. Also had several of the bug fixes, styling fixes, upgraded several of the models and things. I'm on about the 4th iteration of each of my models. I think I'm about finalized on it. So everything is up and working and going as far as that's concerned. Coming up in May, I will be finishing these and making sure I add the user side pages. That shouldn't be too tough because the page already exists. The helper already exists, and it's just a matter of putting the data that exists inside of the places on the page that I want, using the icons that already exist. So that should be fairly straightforward as far as the actual list and the page itself goes. We'll be doing that for everything else. I need a little bit of work on the login page, so that you can actually the login right now is a little bit messy, and I've got a couple ideas for how to simplify a password creation, while also making sure that it's still secure for you, especially since this is to be used for parents and grandparents who may not be as tech savvy. Want to make sure that we're catering to them and making that as simple as possible to use. And then we'll also be implementing some of the beta test feedback on the games that we had tested previously. So the Lexicon game and the focus game. We'll be adding several different ideas to that, and adding some high score tables. So that'll be fun. May I'll be busy as I catch up a bit and move forward with that, but it looks like it should be still doable, and I'm looking forward to it. Post your comments, questions, things you'd love to see different inside of the comments here. We always like to see that, especially as I'm building the page. I want to make sure it's useful for you, so let me know what would be good. Everything in here, like I said, is coded from scratch. The main imports are React is what we're using for that. We're using React Router for everything else. We have a framework for the database, or a package for the database management, and small utilities just like Moment and things like that. I try to avoid Lodash because I'd rather do all of that myself by hand, and using Sagas for all of my back-end API work. I understand that's a bit over-engineered, but generally it handles my promised side effects incredibly well and very easily. So just for that, we'll end up using Sagas. So anyway, it's just some of the tech that's involved. Wanted everything to be from scratch as best I possibly could. So I hope you guys enjoy it. We will see you again next month. Thanks so much for watching.